Okay, so today we are diving headfirst into SUI.
Uh-huh.
This blockchain platform is causing quite a stir, you know?
Yeah.
It's really shaking things up with this approach to scalability, like how to handle a ton of users and make blockchain tech way more user-friendly.
Right.
Now, you, our listener, are here because you're smart. You want to understand SUI, cut through the hype, get to the core of it all.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to do today, a deep dive.
Love it.
We've got a bunch of articles here breaking down SUI's tech, the tokenomics, all those apps popping up, and of course, the team behind it all.
The masterminds, yeah.
Our mission. Simple.
Okay.
Pull out the absolute key insights so you walk away with a crystal clear picture of what makes SUI tick
Yeah.
and why it might just be a really big deal.
Huge potential.
We'll be covering it all, from their unique way of handling data with that object-centric model to the Move programming language, which is all about security.
Right.
Then we'll look at how the network keeps things safe and sound, the purpose behind the SUI token itself, the fuel.
Yeah. Brains at Miston Labs and the exciting growth happening across their ecosystem.
It's a whole world being built there.
Buckle up, folks. We're going in.
All right, let's unpack this thing. SUI is a platform, no doubt, that's grabbing our attention.
For sure.
So, at its core, SUI is a layer 1 blockchain,
Okay.
aiming for, well, truly global reach, right?
Global domination.
Well, you know, widespread use.
Right.
And it's aiming to do that by offering this really secure, powerful, and scalable infrastructure.
We hear those words a lot in the blockchain space. Secure, scalable.
Absolutely.
But what makes SUI's approach different?
Yeah, great question.
What sets it apart?
So what's interesting about SUI is it doesn't just rehash the same old blockchain ideas.
Right.
It's really taken a step back and reevaluated some fundamental aspects.
Right.
Most notably, their object-centric data model and the use of the Move programming language.
Okay, now those sound a bit,
Jargony.
yeah, a bit jargony, right?
Yeah.
For sure, but they represent a deliberate strategy to overcome some of the inherent challenges that have, been nagging earlier blockchain designs.
Limitations, roadblocks.
Exactly. I'm
All right.
already intrigued.
The goal here is ambitious, to support billions of users.
Wow.
And their approach leans on this concept of horizontal scaling, basically adding more capacity as needed.
Kind of like adding more lanes to a highway as traffic increases.
A perfect analogy.
Right.
And along with that, they've got these really innovative programmable transaction blocks we'll get into.
I'm eager to hear about that.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
And so, just to set the stage, when did SUI actually launch?
So SUI's main network went live in May 2023.
Okay, recent.
Relatively, yeah, very much so.
And since then?
We've seen substantial growth and activity within their ecosystem. It's buzzing.
That's exciting to hear.
Definitely has space to watch.
You mentioned layer 1 blockchain.
Yeah.
Now, for folks who maybe are new to this whole world, what exactly does layer 1 mean in the blockchain context? That's a really good clarifying question.
You know, we try to make this accessible to everyone.
I appreciate that.
So, layer 1,
Think of a layer 1 blockchain like the base of a building.
the foundation.
Exactly. It's the foundational layer upon which everything else is built, other applications, and even other blockchains, which we call layer 2 solutions.
Okay.
So you've got your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and now SUI.
The big players.
In a sense, yes, they're all examples of layer 1 blockchains. And they handle those core functions like processing transactions, making sure data is secure, all that jazz, for their respective networks.
So it's the backbone.
It is.
Okay, that helps paint the picture.
Good, good.
Now, you've mentioned this object-centric model a few times.
Right.
For someone used to the idea of a blockchain as this, like, shared record of transactions.
Yeah.
What does it really mean for SUI to be object-centric?
That's a really insightful way to think about it.
Well, you know,
It's a shift, for sure.
I'm trying.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So object-centric,
Instead of picturing the blockchain as this massive shared database where everything is, constantly interacting, bumping into each other.
yeah, a bit chaotic, like
Yeah.
a crowded room.
Haha. Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
The object-centric model is more like having individual self-contained units for different pieces of data.
Like separate containers.
Exactly, containers. Perfect analogy.
Right.
So think about your digital assets, NFTs, or even parts of smart contract code.
Uh-huh.
Each one exists as its own distinct entity, its own container.
So not all jumbled together.
No, that's the key difference.
Okay.
And because these objects are mostly independent,
They can operate on their own.
To a large degree, yes.
Yep.
Many transactions involving different objects can happen at the same time, in parallel.
It's huge for speed, right?
Massive. It's a primary reason SUI can process transactions so quickly. Things aren't all stuck waiting in a single line.
Like a multi-lane highway versus a single-lane road.
Exactly. Much more efficient flow. This fundamentally changes how we think about blockchain.
How so?
It shifts from managing this one giant global state to orchestrating interactions between independent digital assets, like a conductor leading an orchestra.
Wow.
It opens up possibilities for richer, more complex applications that were really difficult to achieve on those older kind of monolithic blockchains.
More dynamic.
Exactly.
Okay, so object-centric, it's all about independent containers of data.
In a nutshell, yeah.
That's a game changer.
It has the potential to be, for sure.
All right, you also talked about the Move programming language.
Right.
You even called it super safe.
I did.
What makes it so special in terms of security?
So imagine the Move programming language like a vault, built from the ground up with security as the absolute top priority.
Okay.
And the creators, many of whom came from Meta's blockchain research team, they designed it with these built-in safeguards, like multiple layers of protection to prevent those common security vulnerabilities that unfortunately have been a real problem in other smart contract languages.
We've seen those exploits, those hacks.
Exactly, and they've led to some, significant losses.
Millions, sometimes billions.
Yeah, it's been rough.
So Move is designed to make it harder to mess up.
Precisely. It's designed to make it much, much harder for developers to accidentally introduce those bugs that malicious actors could exploit.
Like putting up guardrails.
Yes, excellent analogy. Guardrails for code.
That makes sense.
Now, here's an interesting tidbit.
Good.
Move was actually initially developed at Meta.
Really?
Yeah, before it became this key component of both SUI and Aptos, another interesting blockchain platform.
So it's got some real-world pedigree behind it.
Absolutely, and that prior development, really rigorous development and a strong focus on formally verifying the code gives it a very solid foundation.
So it's been battle-tested.
You could say that, yeah.
That's reassuring.
And what this means, this emphasis on preventing those common exploits right at the language level, it could lead to a significantly more secure environment for developers and users alike.
Fewer sleepless nights.
Exactly. Yeah.
Less money lost.
Potentially, yes, reducing those costly hacks we've seen on other platforms.
Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, I read that NFTs on SUI are dynamic and interactive.
Right.
That sounds pretty different from the NFTs we see now, mostly just static images.
It is. It's a big departure from that traditional concept of NFTs as, primarily static digital collectibles.
JPEGs.
Yeah, often, yeah.
Huh?
So because of SUI's object-centric model,
Those independent containers.
right, digital assets, including NFTs, can have much more complex and dynamic behaviors.
What do you mean by dynamic behaviors?
Well, imagine a gaming item, right?
Like a sword or a shield.
Yeah, exactly, but it's not just a static image.
It can change.
Yes, it can actually evolve, gain levels, changes attributes based on actions within the game.
So it's like the NFT itself is almost alive.
It's a very different way of thinking about digital ownership, for sure.
That's wild.
Because each NFT is treated as this object with defined properties and behaviors.
Yeah.
Developers, they have a much broader canvas to create truly interactive digital assets.
That unlocks some crazy possibilities.
It does. It really does.
Right.
Think about advanced gaming experiences, more engaging forms of digital ownership, even things like loyalty programs that adapt over time.
That's really cool.
It's pushing the boundaries.
Okay, next up, we've got these programmable transaction blocks.
All right, yes.
Still sounds a bit technical.
It is a bit, yeah.
Can you break it down for us?
Okay, so think of programmable transaction blocks as a way to bundle a bunch of blockchain actions into one neat, efficient sequence.
A package deal.
Yeah, kinda.
All right.
So let's say you want to trade one cryptocurrency for another on a decentralized exchange, and then immediately stake those new tokens to earn rewards.
2 steps.
Right, 2 separate transactions on most blockchains. But with programmable transaction blocks, you can define that entire sequence as a single atomic operation.
It all happens at once.
Exactly.
That's going to be more efficient.
Much more, it makes those complex interactions faster, potentially reduces those pesky gas fees.
I hate gas fees.
We all do, and it just improves the whole user experience.
Streamline.
Yes, it streamlines those multi-step processes.
So it's like having a pre-written script for the blockchain.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, an executable script.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful concept.
It is. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
Now, all this fancy tech, it's great, but how does SUI actually keep its network secure?
Right. Security is paramount.
I saw mentions of delegated proof of stake and some uniquely named consensus protocols.
Yeah, narwhal and bullshark, catchy, right?
Can you elaborate on those?
Absolutely. So security is the bedrock of any blockchain, and SUI uses something called delegated proof of stake, or DPoS for short.
DPoS.
It's a fairly common model.
How's it work?
So holders of the SUI token can choose to delegate their tokens to validators.
Okay.
Those validators, they're the ones responsible for processing transactions and, well, keeping the network honest.
So they're like the guardians.
In a way, yeah.
Well,
This delegation process, it's a good thing.
how so?
Well, it allows more people to participate in securing the network and earn rewards without needing to be, super tech savvy or have a ton of resources to run their own validator node.
Like a community effort.
Exactly, it's more inclusive.
I like that.
Now, what's really fascinating is how SUI actually achieves consensus, which means agreement on the validity of transactions.
They got their own special sauce.
They do. It's a unique recipe.
Okay, tell me more.
So they developed this thing called narwhal.
Narwhal.
Yeah, it efficiently manages a mempool.
Mempool.
You can think of it like a waiting area for pending transactions.
Gotcha.
And narwhal, it organizes this mempool as a directed acyclic graph, or DAG.
Dag.
It sounds complicated, but picture it like a flowchart where transactions are linked together in a way that shows their dependencies.
Got
It allows the network to process many related transactions efficiently without being stuck in a strict, one after the other order.
Parallel processing again.
You got it.
That's a theme with SUI.
It is. Speed and efficiency are key.
Okay, so we've got Narwhal managing the waiting area.
Right.
What's next?
Then comes bullshark.
Bullshark.
It's their consensus protocol.
Okay.
It takes those transactions from narwhal, double checks everything, verifies they're legit, and then finalizes them.
Make sure everything's in order.
Precisely. It ensures everyone on the network agrees on the order and outcome.
A blockchain symphony conductor.
Uh-huh. I like that.
Now, I remember reading that some transactions can actually bypass this whole consensus mechanism
You're right.
for even faster confirmation, right?
Exactly. And that's a really important distinction.
So tell me about that.
Okay, so for certain types of transactions, especially those that only involve one owner and aren't super dependent on other parts of the network.
Simple transactions.
Relatively, yes.
Okay.
SUI can use something they call Byzantine consistent broadcast.
Okay, what's that do?
Well, it allows these simpler transactions to reach finality, meaning they're confirmed and can't be reversed super quickly.
The quick are we talking?
Typically less than half a second.
That's blazing fast.
It is much faster than many other blockchain platforms.
So near real time.
Essentially, yes, it provides those near real-time settlement guarantees for these common types of interactions.
Makes the user experience that much smoother.
Exactly. For everyday actions, it makes a big difference.
So it's like a fast lane for certain transactions.
Yeah, you could think of it that way, a dedicated lane for those simpler agreements that don't need the full, heavyweight consensus mechanism.
Smart.
Efficiency is baked into the design.
Okay, let's talk about the SUI token now.
Correct, the heart of the system.
What's its main purpose within the SUI network?
So the SUI token, the native token of the SUI network,
Yeah.
it has a total supply capped at 10 billion tokens.
10 billion. Okay.
And it plays several very important roles.
A busy token.
It is. So first and foremost, as we discussed with that delegated proof of stake, it's essential for securing the network, right?
Validators stake SUI, and users who delegate their SUI to those validators, they get rewarded for contributing to the network's security.
You got it.
Okay, that's one role.
Then SUI is also used to pay for those pesky gas fees.
Those again.
I know, right? But they're a fact of life in most blockchains.
So gas fees are...
They're the costs associated with executing transactions and storing data on the SUI blockchain.
Okay.
Now, what SUI tries to do, which is interesting, is make gas fees more predictable and generally lower compared to some other chains.
How do they do that?
By establishing a reference gas price at the beginning of each epoch.
Epoch, what's that?
It's just a fancy word for a 24-hour period.
Okay, so like a daily rate.
Exactly. It helps users estimate the cost of using the network.
That's definitely helpful.
Transparency is good.
So it fuels the network. It's used for security and transaction costs.
Yeah.
What else does SUI do?
Well, beyond security and fees, SUI is designed to be a multi-purpose token across the entire SUI ecosystem.
Okay.
So you'll see it being used in all sorts of decentralized applications.
Like
Decentralized exchanges like Turbos Finance, where you can trade digital assets.
Right.
Lending and borrowing platforms like NEI, blockchain games where it might represent in-game currency or items. The possibilities are really expanding.
So as SUI grows, the SUI tokens uses grow along with it.
Exactly, its utility increases.
And what about governance? Does the SUI token play a role there?
Absolutely. Down the line, the SUI token will be crucial for governing the SUI network.
How so?
Well, SUI holders will be able to participate in on-chain voting.
So they get a say in the future of SUI.
Exactly. They can vote on big decisions like upgrades to the protocol, changes to how the platform operates, all of that.
That's real power.
It is. It puts the community in charge.
Now, there was this concept, the SUI Storage Fund.
Right.
What's that all about?
Okay, so the SUI Storage Fund is pretty innovative.
Okay.
It's all about long-term sustainability, thinking ahead.
Makes sense.
You see, storing data on a blockchain forever, it costs money, resources.
Sure.
So the SUI Storage Fund is designed to address those costs, make sure someone's paying the bills down the line.
Smart.
It essentially redistributes those stake rewards over time to compensate the validators who are storing all that historical data.
So it's like a built-in savings plan for the network.
That's a good way to think about it.
Interesting.
This way, users can confidently store data on SUI without worrying about costs skyrocketing in the future.
Peace of mind.
And it ensures validators are fairly compensated for doing their job, both now and in the future.
Sustainable.
Very much so.
Now, for the average user, what about staking?
Yeah.
Is there a minimum amount of SUI you need?
So for those hardcore folks who want to run a validator node, those who are actively processing transactions,
The tech-savvy folks.
yeah, they need a hefty stake, at least 30 million SUI.
Wow, that's a lot of SUI.
It is, but for the average user who just wants to participate, contribute to security, and earn some rewards, they can delegate their SUI tokens to those validators.
Hold their resources.
Exactly. They entrust their stake to a validator and get a cut of the rewards that validator earns.
Makes sense.
Those rewards come from transaction fees and also stake subsidies that the protocol distributes.
So it's a way to earn passively.
It can be, yes.
Now, what about voting power? Is there a limit on how much influence any one person can have?
Great question. So SUI has a fixed total of 10,000 voting units for governance.
Okay.
And to make sure no one gets too powerful, a single validator's voting power is capped at 1,000 units, or 10% of the total.
So it's a balanced system.
It's designed to be, yes, prevents any one entity from having too much sway.
That's crucial for decentralization.
Absolutely.
Now, we should mention,
Yeah.
the SUI team has also set aside some SUI tokens for ecosystem incentives and development grants
Oh, right. Those are important.
to encourage growth and new projects,
Exactly. It's all about fostering that innovation and adoption.
building the SUI world.
Precisely.
Okay, let's talk about the team behind SUI now.
The brains of the operation.
It was developed by Miston Labs, right?
That's correct. Miston Labs is the company that created SUI.
And what's really interesting, or at least I think it's interesting,
Yeah.
the founders, they have quite a background.
They do. A very impressive pedigree.
They're former lead architects from Meta's blockchain research division, Novi Research.
That's right. A very talented bunch.
So they know a thing or two about building scalable and secure platforms.
Oh, they've been in the trenches, working at a global scale.
That's a huge asset for SUI.
It is. It gives the project instant credibility.
Can you tell us a bit more about some of these key individuals and what they bring to the table?
Absolutely. So leading the charge as CEO is Evan Chang.
Evan Chang,
He's got over 2 decades of experience in platform development.
a veteran.
You could say that, yeah. And he's led large engineering teams at some major companies like Apple and Facebook. Yeah.
So he knows how to build things.
He does, and at scale.
Then we've got Adeni Abiodun as the Chief Product Officer.
Right. Adeni's got a great track record in leading engineering and product teams at companies like Oracle, VMware, and also Facebook.
Facebook, again, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of talent coming from there.
And he's been involved in the blockchain space for over 10 years.
Deeply involved, he really knows this world.
Okay, next.
We've got Sam Blackshear, the Chief Technology Officer.
Now, he's a key figure, right?
He is. Sam's the original creator of the Move Smart contract language.
The language we talked about earlier.
The very same. So he's fundamental to SUI's security and how it all works.
That's huge.
It is a crucial role.
Okay, who else?
Then we have George Denesis, the chief scientist.
Impressive title.
He's a professor at University College London with over 20 years of expertise in peer-to-peer system security and privacy.
So he knows how to keep things safe.
He does, a real expert in that field.
And lastly,
We have Kostas Chalkias, the chief cryptographer.
cryptography. That's the heart of blockchain.
Absolutely. And Kostas has held lead cryptographer roles at several big companies like Meta and R3.
So he brings that deep cryptographic knowledge to the team.
Exactly. They've assembled a really strong team.
It's a powerhouse of experience and expertise.
It is, and that combination of deep technical knowledge and practical experience from those leading tech companies.
It's a huge advantage for SUI.
It is. It really sets them apart.
They're not just academics, they've built things in the real world.
That's right. They understand the challenges and how to overcome them.
And Miston Labs itself, how big is the company now?
So since they started, they've grown quite a bit.
Okay.
There are over 100 team members now.
Wow.
Spanning engineering, research, business development, you name it.
A serious operation.
They're not messing around.
And partnerships? Any notable ones?
Oh yeah, they've formed strategic partnerships with some major tech companies and academic institutions.
Can you name any?
Well, I can't disclose specifics, but it's safe to say they're collaborating with some big names.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
It's all about advancing their work in blockchain tech.
Pushing the boundaries.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's explore what's being built on top of SUI.
The ecosystem, it's blossoming.
I saw SUINS mentioned.
Right, SUINS.
What's that all about?
Okay, SUINS is SUI's very own name service platform.
Okay.
Think of it like the DNS for the internet.
DNS, that's the domain name system, right?
Yes, the thing that translates websites like google.com into those numerical IP addresses.
Right, so we don't have to remember a bunch of numbers.
Exactly. SUINS does something similar, but for the SUI blockchain,
Okay.
it lets users register human-readable identifiers, like, say, alice.sui.
Easy to remember.
Much easier.
Okay.
And they can link those names to their SUI account addresses, which are those long, complicated strings of characters.
All right, those are impossible to remember.
They are, so this makes sending and receiving digital assets much, much simpler.
Makes sense.
You don't have to wrestle with those crazy addresses anymore.
It's all about user-friendliness.
It is. SUINS is a big step towards making blockchain easier for everyone.
So it's like having a username for your crypto wallet.
Exactly. A much more human-friendly way to interact.
I like it.
And what's cool, these
Wow.
SUINS names, they're actually NFTs.
Really?
Yeah, stored right in the user's wallet.
So they own it.
They do, full ownership, and all those benefits of SUI's object model apply to these names too.
That's interesting.
It is. It's blurring the lines between different types of digital assets.
And personalization, you mentioned that.
Right, SUINS lets you personalize your name, add a bit of flair.
Right.
You can associate NFT avatars with your name using SUI's composable object capabilities.
So you could have your NFT profile picture right there with your SUINS name.
Exactly, a visual representation of your identity.
That's cool.
And they also support linking IPFS websites to SUINS names.
IPFS, that's the Interplanetary File System, right?
Yes, a decentralized way to store and access files. So you could have a simple informational website or a more dynamic, interactive one, all linked to your SUINS name.
A whole web presence built on SUI.
It's possible. The potential is there.
That's pretty awesome.
It's pushing the boundaries of what's possible with blockchain.
Okay, now what about DeFi, decentralized finance?
Ah, DeFi, the Wild West.
Is there much happening on SUI in that area?
Oh yeah, the DeFi ecosystem on SUI is booming. Tons of development, lots of cool projects popping up.
Any standouts you can tell us about?
Sure, so we've got Turbos Finance, a decentralized exchange, or DX for short.
DX, okay.
It's specifically designed for concentrated liquidity and making trading really efficient.
So swapping tokens quickly and cheaply.
That's the idea.
Okay.
Then there's Bluefin, another DX, but this one focuses on derivatives.
Derivatives, those are a bit more complex.
It can be, but Bluefin wants to make them accessible and easy to use.
Okay.
They aim for a high-performance user experience that feels similar to, traditional Web 2 platforms.
Familiar and user-friendly. Then we've got Aftermath.
Right, Aftermath is interesting. They're positioning themselves as this all-in-one platform.
Like a DeFi Swiss Army knife.
Haha, kind of. They offer trading, liquid staking, yield generation, all in one place.
Convenient.
And they're big on speed and transparency.
That's always a plus.
Absolutely.
Any others?
Yeah, there's Kriya. They're focused on institutional users.
Okay, the big players.
Right. They provide DeFi products that aggregate liquidity and offer advanced tools tailored for institutions.
So more sophisticated tools and services.
Exactly.
Right.
They're pseudo-finance. They're working on a real-world asset and derivatives exchange.
Real-world assets, that's bridging the gap between traditional finance and DeFi.
It is, and they're aiming for high leverage and zero slippage, which is pretty ambitious.
Sounds like it.
Then we've got NEVI, a lending and borrowing protocol with some cool features like automatic leverage vaults.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
It is. It automates some of the complexity of managing leverage.
Makes it easier for users.
Exactly.
And
lastly, there's CETUS protocol. Another DX, this one using a flexible liquidity network.
so lots of options for trading on SUI.
Yeah, a lot of competition, which is good for users.
Drives innovation.
For sure.
So we've got all these different DeFi projects covering lending, borrowing, trading, derivatives, even real-world assets.
It's a rapidly growing space.
Very exciting.
It is. Lots of potential.
Okay, and what about NFTs beyond just the SUI name service?
Right, so the NFT scene on SUI is also pretty active.
Okay.
Marketplaces like Hyperspace and Tradeport are where people are buying, selling, and trading NFTs.
So the infrastructure's there.
It is, and new projects are popping up all the time.
I also saw some related pages mentioned in one of the articles, including a report comparing Aptos and SUI.
Ah, yes, that comparison is interesting.
Why is that?
Well, both Aptos and SUI, they're layer 1 blockchains,
Right.
both built using the Move language,
Yeah.
and they share some of that same underlying tech that originally came from Meta.
Cousins, in a way.
Haha, yeah, you could say that. But while they share some similarities, they've made different design choices along the way.
Different approaches.
Exactly. Different approaches to things like scalability